Hey everybody, this is Perch. Can comics recover? Well, again, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, then the answer is yes. Comics are cyclical. It's funny when you argue about something over and over and over, and you make the point over and over and over, and people take shots at you for it. Do you know the amount of people who've sent me mail, gone on live streams, and absolutely like Perch is stupid. Comics are dying. They're definitely dying for sure. The last time they were dying was what was it, summer 2020? I think was when they were going to die for sure. Or maybe it was 2021. I don't remember. It was DC was definitely dying at that time for sure. They're going to stop making comics, and this has gone on and on and on. And what I've said over and over again, and I'm realizing at this moment, the problem may be that I'm using big words. So the word I've used to describe comics, and but you can apply it to anything, is cyclical. Things are cyclical, which means they go up, they go down. You have peaks, you have valleys. That's how literally everything works. People like to bring up well, not everything's cyclical. Look at Blockbuster. Yeah, Blockbuster was a retailer, that was renting movies. Movies didn't die. Blockbuster died. The mechanism died. The movies didn't die. That's different. Anyway, see, what's something that has died, completely died? I'm sure I'm sure there are things, but the vast majority, and particularly things that are pop culture, are cyclical. They go up, they go down. Friend sent me something. It's like, wait, what is it? I'll just read it here. It's funny. It says, peaks and valleys, doom grifters. And I won't mention these other two, but just two other YouTubers, one of which, of course, I know very well. Doom grifters like blank and blank, and even Perch will have you believe that once something bad happens, then that's their trajectory for never going back for good. Pure negativity. So odd, being they claim to love comics. Well, I mean, there's somebody who doesn't listen, but it is funny. And again, it is my own fault. I've used the word cyclical, and that is a complicated word, like, paradox and load bearing. These are hard things to understand. Anyway, can comics come back? Of course. History suggests they absolutely will. What will cause the change usually is one of two things. If you look at the history of anything, movies, music, any kind of media, there's two drivers for disruption and change. One is quality and popularity. So I'll give you an example of this one. Wrestling is an example of this one. The WWF was popular. You had Hogan fighting Randy Savage. You had Andre the Giant. You had the Ultimate Warrior. You had, this kind of boom of wrestling. And then wrestling started to get a little less cool. And so for a period of time, and unfortunately, because I like the guy, Bret Hart and people were kind of the faces of that era, Shawn Michaels, and it wasn't as cool as the kind of big, Hogan, Andre moments. But then we got into the Monday Night Wars. And in WCW, it had Nash and Hall and Hogan, and ultimately the NWO. And over in the WWE, you had D-Generation X, and you had The Rock. You had the famous Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mike Tyson fight. You had kind of this era, and wrestling got red hot again. Super, super popular. And then wrestling got dull again. And then you had Roman Reigns, and you had some, wrestling got interesting to people. Anyway, that cyclical change of up and down really had everything to do with popularity. The business model didn't fundamentally change. There were, TV events, there were pay-per-views. There, the pricing, of course, evolved over time, but really, there wasn't a fundamental change to the structure or to the business model. It was all about popularity. Comic books have had a similar moment where you have had, Todd McFarlane gets red hot. You have the Image, you have Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld and Mark Silvestri, and you had. I feel like I want to take a shot at Eric Larson at this moment, but then I'd have to take a shot at Jim Valentino, and I don't want to do that. Anyway, you had these guys get very, very popular, and you had speculators come in, and that was a popularity boom for comics. So that's one area where things get big. And if you don't have those big names, things get weak. And so, they go back and forth based on popularity. So that's one way. The other way is a change of structure or a change of business model. An example of this would be, it wasn't like you suddenly had a bunch of mega bands come into things, but suddenly music shifted from buying CDs in a store to, a la carte, Apple Music. Certainly piracy played into some of that. And you had this change, this fundamental change that, made music and bands popular, but in a different way, where kind of the old was disrupted to lead to the new. Another example of this, it's a little bit more boring to you, would be, ride sharing or, taxi services. You have Yellow Cab gets replaced by Uber. And so you have these kind of shifts that go on. So either it's popularity, which is a little bit more organic, it's harder to control. Certainly you could market your way into popularity, but I don't think the WWE ever believed that, I don't think they expected The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin to get as huge as they did. But they did. And so when, the trick is figure out when those moments hit and then write it. In comics, it would be the equivalent of, hey, you've got some creators or you've got a character or you got something that is really, really big. Let's hype it. Let's build it. Let's protect it and build a business out of it. And you can do that. So, you have that effect that goes on. But generally speaking, you get kind of one or the other. You get popularity or you get structural change. With where comics are right now, I think based on the factors we talk about this channel a lot, and maybe by talking about them, dim-witted people believe that that's doomsaying and that everything's fucked. And for that matter, I don't know, maybe some of you are listening to this right now going, well, holy shit, Perch doesn't think comics are going to die forever tomorrow. I've always believed he did. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. If that's you, yikes. I mean, that's all I can say. But anyway, based on where comics are with the struggle with distribution, with a high price point, it feels to me like a business model change or a structural change is what is required for comic books to get majorly popular and the business to grow again. I don't think it can be done through sheer popularity of characters or creators. I think the argument I would have is, look, we just went through a period of time where these characters are on the big screen. The MCU was red hot, billion-dollar movies and everything else. It didn't really translate to comics, not in a major, meaningful way. So I was talking with a writer who was telling me, hey, I think DC is about to go through a major boom because Superman was really popular and it outperformed and people were excited about it. So, I'll bet a lot of those people are going to run out and buy comics. I bet not. I think we've seen this song and dance. We've seen it before. I think that it's not clear that translates over. I think if you have a red hot creative team and you give that team time to cook, which will be probably a couple of years, given that comic books aren't, in the grocery stores on the newsstand, they're not easily accessible. So it's going to be harder for those creators to be found. But if you give people time, maybe. But to me, what's really going to impact comics, what's really going to change things is a change in structure, a change in business model, a change in that. That to me is what's going to really save the day. But overall, by the way, comic books are going to become more popular again. They absolutely are. I think that there's a lot of people out there who are like, comic books are dead now. I mean, maybe what they're saying is comic books are dead to me. And that's fair, by the way. People come and go with what they like all the time. Comic books are not meant to, nothing is meant to be, in a lot of cases, a lifelong love. There's plenty of people that liked wrestling. There's plenty of people that liked a band that they lost interest, that it stopped being as interesting anymore, that they just weren't as excited. That is normal. That's called growing up. It's life. And it's perfectly fair and acceptable and, frankly, indefensible. Meaning, or not indefensible. It's completely defensible. If you decide you just don't like something anymore, well, you're the only barometer of that. You're the only one who gets to pick that, so that's up to you. No one can argue with you. You're just not into it anymore. So it's always safe to say comics are dead to me. I don't buy Marvel anymore. It's dead to me. But as an industry, of course comic books is going to get more popular over time. And by the way, it's not as bad as people think. I understand this is tough for people to hear, but comic books are not, like if there's some channels, if you listen to them, you would start to have the belief that like all the comics are losing money and there's some blue-haired, pierced out, woke, like lunatic deliberate like who's holding these big corporations hostage for ESG money, who's like forcing them to print unreadable bullshit to own Trump. I mean that is not happening. It just isn't. But that doesn't mean comic books are flying off the shelves either. They're not. They are struggling. They're in a down period. But chances are they will come up. Yes, there's always a chance things will collapse entirely. But frankly, from a business perspective, it is pretty impossible for that to happen because comic books, even though you have the big two, they're still decentralized. You have Image has a big presence. Dark Horse is doing things. Yes, IDW is fucked up. But you have a lot of different companies producing comics. You're not reliant on one person. This isn't Diamond for publishing. There are other means. So if one of those entities, fails hard and flops and closes up shop, the rest will likely fill in the void. With one kind of exception, Marvel and DC, because of their presence in the industry, if they were to fail, it would create a real hardship on comic shops that would struggle to fill that void because they need books to sell. But even there, comic books aren't going to die. People would recalibrate. It would be painful, but it would be fine. And things are likely to come back. So no, on the Perch show, we do not believe that it's gloom and doom. I mean, there's another YouTuber. Just went on multiple live stream EFAP rants about what a fucking idiot I was because I didn't believe comics were dying or already dead because I didn't believe that DC was going to close up shop. You have to look at some of the people who are saying this shit, and in many cases, the reason they're saying this shit is because they're trying to sell their own comics, which is a bit crazy if you think about it, because if you're saying comics are dead, except my comics, I mean, what are you even talking about? Anyway, makes no sense. But comic books are not doing well, but they will do well, and things will come up again. And then guess what? Things are gonna fuck up again. This is the way of things. As long as we're on the subject of being annoyed by stuff, I'll throw one more at you. If you've listened this far, honest question. You know that South Park Into the Panderverse, and it's Pander with an R, Panderverse. A bunch of people, when they were tossing around that Kathleen Kennedy, put a chick in it and make it gay meme, they were like, it's the Pandaverse. It's like, no, it's not the panda. No, dumbass, it's Panderverse, meaning it was pandering. Panderverse, not Pandaverse. There were no pandas in that episode. Anyway, I hadn't seen it. It got pushed onto Paramount Plus, and I was going through I'm subscribed to, Apple TV and HBO and Hulu and Disney and Netflix and Peacock, and for the love of Christ, I know more. Anyway, daughter wanted to watch a movie. So, bingo, now we're subscribed to Paramount. And I watched that episode in full for the first time. Did you all watch that episode? Because I think a lot of people missed the punchline of that episode. I'm just throwing that out there. If you've done the put a chick in it and make it gay, then you saw that meme on Twitter, but I don't think you actually watched the episode because that episode was kind of saying something a little different in there. I mean, yes, that line was in the episode, but did you watch it all the way through? Because that it's not an ad for South Park, but I mean, I don't know. They're supposed to be doing a new episode soon, but like, I don't think you watched that episode. I'm just saying. I think you missed something in there. Oh well. Yep. Annoyed again. Thanks for listening.